In our final panel, we will explore the realm of cybersecurity and psychological warfare as methods of repression with mental health specialist Anaelle Saade. This panel aims to shed light on the complex intersection between mental health, technology, and the ways in which these tools are exploited to suppress artistic expression and autonomy. Anaelle, I'm so happy that I have you here as a guest and to learn more about this topic. So can you tell us please more about yourself?
Of course. My name is Anaelle Saade. I studied clinical psychology. I started my career working with Doctors Without Borders. I worked with them for around 7.5 years. I used to work in emergencies, had the chance to work in Lebanon and abroad. After that, I switched into something a little bit different. I started doing freelancing and working as a consultant. So I went more into staff care. And then I got this great job as a psychosocial safety consultant. So that sounds a little bit exotic. This is where I don't operate in Lebanon at the moment a lot. So mainly I work with the IREX, the International Research and Exchange Board, on a program called Safe Access to Free Expression. So we mainly work with journalists, activists, social communicators. My role, of course, is psychosocial safety. But today, as Lynn mentioned, we will be talking about cybersecurity as well, but not technical cybersecurity, as I can barely stalk someone on Instagram. We will be talking about the human impact that artists can suffer from because of cybersecurity.
So Anaelle, what is the definition of psychological warfare and cybersecurity?
Okay.
To start, yeah.
Okay. So let's start with cybersecurity.
Okay.
So cybersecurity as a word sounds a little bit scary, but it's not. Mainly it's security. It's the mechanisms that we put in place in order to protect ourselves, protect our files, our data, our social media. It's security. It's supposed to be safe. But cybersecurity can be bad in some cases, and especially if it's manipulated from a governmental side. Because when you told me that we're going to be talking about artists mainly and what they're going to suffer from, what they can suffer from, it's mainly the repression side that can be caused by cybersecurity. So how, maybe now when you hear cybersecurity, everyone will be like, no, it's not my thing. Like maybe I cannot be a victim of that. Giving examples about cybersecurity, I can start by surveillance, for example. And when I say surveillance, it's not just the cameras or something. Like on social media, I think we all have examples of people that posted stuff, let's say political stuff, because they're more accessible as examples. And because of that, they got interrogated, they got detained, they got to the military court, stuff like that. So this is monitoring and surveillance that can take place through cybersecurity because the government is employing it.
Ziad was mentioning before that he was shadow censored. It was shadow banned from TikTok because of his content. Is it an example?
Of course. I'm talking on a smaller scale. I tried as much as possible focusing on Lebanon and what, as Lebanese, we can have as impact. But yes, of course. And jumping from that, also monitoring maybe your research and what news we get. The information that we have access to. Also, it can be, you can see cybersecurity also in direct cyber attacks. So people that get hacked, people that get trolled on the internet with, an artist that posted something a little bit too out there and got 55 comments from people called _75_. So this is they're getting trolled. We call that I don't know how to, let's say, digital trolling. Digital army, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So these are examples. So just I gave them so we know that it's not something that unreachable and that if I don't work in tech, I am not a victim of that. No, it's something that coexists because, how much people are on social media right now and how much opinions are being expressed there, and art is shared there as well.
Okay. So how? So we spoke. You told us about cybersecurity and psychological warfare.
I can talk a little bit more about psychological warfare because they're different. We're talking about cybersecurity and psychological warfare together because we're mainly talking about repression.
Okay.
So they are tools of repression. Psychological warfare is different, not very different, but different. Psychological warfare in Arabic is 𝗘𝗽𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗏. It's mainly the psychological tools that can be used on a person in order to harm this person. How can psychological warfare happen? It can happen through, like, we really see it in everyday's life. Intimidation, fear, gaslighting. Let's do a live example. Tell me, like, you want to like make something great. I don't know, start a revolution, do something.
I'm not good at improv, but okay. No, I want to open a cafe for.
I can just laugh like this, and you know this is psychological warfare.
Okay, thank you.
Like this is really where I just belittled you. Like it took me a second to do it. You see, it's that accessible. It's mainly people gaslighting each other, and we're saying people. But if you're an artist that has political opinions, if you're an artist that is queer, if you're an artist that is out there in any way, you can be like, there are people that work on that psychological warfare.
Is this considered social engineering?
No, we're jumping like we're gonna go to social engineering.
Okay.
I want to just like
guide me through it.
Yes, I will guide you through it. So in psychological warfare, I talked about fear and intimidation.
Okay.
Which happens a lot. What I did right now is intimidating you and belittling you just because you said you wanted to open a cafe. So other than that, there is something that's very dangerous in the art world, which is propaganda.
Fake news.
And fake news. Disinformation. So propaganda, we see it a lot. We see how it's, and there are tools behind propaganda. It does not happen from a day to another. Like there are people that are working technically on that for propaganda to happen, and disinformation, because disinformation, like it's evil somehow, because disinformation, you work on it, you create tools of disinformation, you create fake proof, you create, you know, it's a whole thing. If I'm gonna say, I don't know, Ruby is cheating on I don't know whom, you will be seeing pictures of, like, we don't know if they're photoshopped or not, but this is how people spread this information.
Yes. Yeah, and also Ziad mentioned that right now there are fake news saying that drag queens are perverts.
Exactly. And they like children. Like, What? Like, really, 𝗍𝗏𝗍 𝗍𝗏𝗍𝗏.
What happened?
Like, what happened? Like, for you, it's a little bit weird. Like, really satanistic rituals? Satanic rituals, I don't know. But it's like, as absurd as it can sound, this works, and propaganda works. And especially that like 1 or 2 priests will go and like post some pictures with while respecting all religions, but this is where you're mixing between fake news with proofs that come from religion, for example, with assigning, I don't know, creating a link between homosexuality and pedophilia, which it's completely ethically, technically wrong in so many ways. But people do believe propaganda, and when people start a campaign like that, a propaganda campaign, it does not come from one media outlet. It comes like, there's a whole army behind it. You will have 2-3 media outlets that follow the government.
So this is psychological war.
Yes.
Okay.
This is psychological war.
And basically, people who are behind this are linked to a party, a political party, or a
I'm not saying names. No, that's not my objective.
But when does the psychological warfare happen? Like who is targeted mostly?
Who is targeted? People that are vocal usually, people that have a certain opinion that is different from the opinion of the state, the government. I'm very limited to politics in this because this is my background as well. But like we can take it on a broader level between artists, you know, if there is someone that is not a good person and that wants to harm someone else, psychological warfare is one of the tools, and cyber attacks as well. And other than that, I wanted to mention something important when it came to that. Wait, I forgot.
Cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying is in the cybersecurity part. The difference here is that in psychological warfare, the tools that are used are mainly human and psychological tools. You know, it's really destroying you and your self-esteem and your idea along the way, or before you even get the chance to start.
Okay.
Just like we did with the coffee shop example. I ruined your idea from the first second. So no matter how grand and good your idea can be, psychological warfare exists and it can be ruined, and it can, like, artists can be a victim of that. Also, we can talk about the manipulation that can happen. A lot of manipulation, whether it's online or offline or in normal media.
Manipulating the audience?
For example, let's say 𝗦𝗫𝗿𝗀, you see the repercussions that happened after all of the propaganda and after all the Lilith stories and I don't know what. And that, the effects of that would of course intimidate other artists to go that strongly with their music. It will stop them, it will intimidate them, it manipulates them into going into a more repressive way of being, because it is it ruined the safe space that they thought was there.
That this happened to 𝗦𝗫𝗿𝗀 because of their identity or because of their content? Like, what was the biggest problematic thing about 𝗦𝗫𝗿𝗀 for the?
I don't think it's the type of music. Like, I don't think the violin is the thing that annoyed people. I think mainly the identity, being queer, talking about that was very alarming, because the biggest...
They became powerful.
They became very powerful.
With their music.
Like they existed through their music, and that is powerful, I think, and that is very threatening to religious communities and entities, and that triggered them to fight back, because music was apparently fighting. And that can, of course, affect all other artists on that level. But
it basically cancelled them in a way.
They don't... This is repression. It cancelled them. They don't play anymore.
So what to do?
we stop being artists. No, not really. We need to understand a little bit. Okay, there is not one solution, I believe, in this. Like, it does not happen magically. But what we need to understand is that whether it's cyber attacks, cyberbullying, whatever has to do with cybersecurity, or whatever has to do with psychological warfare, what we need to understand is the human component behind that. The human component, as it's someone behind a certain computer or behind a certain account or whatever that is starting this war, this attack. Why are they starting that? There's something that I would like to talk about, and it's social engineering. Mainly if we got to it. Mainly if someone is getting attacked, like not if you receive like a Nigerian prince is sending you a fortune, because that is not targeted.
Every day.
That is not targeted, but unless it is targeted. But if someone wants to attack you, let's say, Lynn, you're an artist, let's say, you're a curator, if I want to attack you digitally or psychologically, what would I do? Like, we can all brainstorm together. We can say, Lynn, you're a married woman, right?
Yeah.
We can find a picture of Lynn with another guy on the street, maybe shaking hands, and put it in one of the magazines, saying Lynn is going through is cheating, or you know. And since you're a woman, you're much weaker. Like, you can be attacked on that level, on the sexual level, on the your marriage. If you're a veiled woman, like, they can just find one picture of you without that veil and say that you're having vulgar attitude. Yes, you get studied through social engineering, and this is how Well, and it takes time. Usually, there's the emotional side and social engineering. So, if we're talking on an individual side, for someone to be able to get information from you, someone needs to get close to you. How do they get close to you? They get information on you. So they get to know what you do, who you are, maybe your weaknesses. Where if the objective is stealing you, it's something. If the objective is ruining your reputation, it's something else. They're gonna try and find something on you, but they need proximity to do that. And this is the human component that we can be aware about.
Okay. Also, yesterday, stand-up comedian, they were talking about the stand-up comedy scene, and there are a lot of threats that the comedians receive. And why? Is it because of the art? Because they are talking about political parties?
Of course, they're too vocal.
How did they get the chance to study this person?
Okay, let's take an example of a comedian. I don't know, it depends on your religion, who you're attacking, how strong are they or not, and how are they gonna get to you? What are your weak points? Is it because if you're, for example, I talked about the hijab, like the veil, because if you're religiously, like you put the veil, I see that attack happening over and over again so many times. And you just ask yourself, like, they can do better social engineering on that level. But it's a weak point. It is a weak point because it can destroy someone's reputation. And other than that, so politically, you can get threatened. They can find, I don't know, if you have someone that you love around you, and like the intimidation, they get I'm giving examples, but like, sometimes they get one person and this person goes through a lot of hell. I don't know whether it's on I don't know if they go to court or if they get imprisoned or tortured. It depends. I can go like really creative with the examples, which I don't want to. But on that level, that would scare you and that would scare the community around you, and that will cause repression also. Okay?
So how do all of this affect the person?
Okay.
What's the aftermath?
Okay. So, talking about the artist. Sorry, I talked a lot. So, talking about the artist, whoever is performing in any way is giving a part of himself. Whether you're writing or you're performing or you're putting a part of yourself out there, and this exposes a lot of vulnerability, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. Really, you need a lot of courage to do that. And being an artist, being this exposed, being this vulnerable, and also talking about the economical side of art, which is not usually very stable. It can be sustainable on the long run, but it's not very stable. So you have the ups and downs, and it's a shaky world. It's a vulnerable world. So if you're an artist and you're going through all of your vulnerabilities, and the examples that we saw now in the previous in the previous panel, like they mentioned a lot of vulnerability that they went through in order to progress and empower themselves, whether through themselves or through others. But it's a journey, and there is a lot of you that is exposed. Okay, of course, it depends on the form of art. Like if I'm drawing flowers, it will not have the same impact as if I was a drag queen, or if I was a stand-up comedian that was speaking about like very problematic issues that are happening in the country. It exposes you to more vulnerability. It exposes you to more hate. It exposes you to more feelings that people and emotions that people can have towards you. But also your role in all of this. It's heavy. We need to just acknowledge the fact that working in this field can cause emotional heaviness. It can cause stress, anxiety. You can trip. You can trip. I meant not trip. Trip and fall on a mental health level, and that it can cause high anxiety. I don't know, depression on the long run. Also, if you're getting attacked online, it's a traumatic experience. And we cannot say that trauma only happens if you're in the real world with physiological things around you. getting it, like most of our life is online right now. If someone goes through my social media accounts and gets a hold of my information and plays with it and harms me with it, I think it's as traumatic as anything else. So there is a lot of psychological impact that can be happening there, and a lot of vulnerability that is exposed, and on and on.
Okay. So now we like spread awareness about it and talked about cybersecurity and psychological warfare and all of that, but like, how can someone deal with all what we mentioned right now?
Okay. So dealing with that, as I was saying, it's not like there's a recipe to follow that everyone can follow and feel great about themselves. Mental health is never linear in that way. We're never just doing well all the time. There are ups and downs, and we need to acknowledge that. But being an artist, being someone that is exposed, being someone that's vulnerable, what we need to start by doing is really like an awareness exercise about ourselves, about who we are, why we are doing it, and what can harm us. Really identifying what can harm us, because as I said, if we get harmed digitally or we go through psychological warfare, usually it is targeted. As an artist, why would I be targeted? So being aware of that, I'm not saying not doing it. It's mainly being aware of that, because being aware of the situation like cancels half of the trauma through that. At least you have, even if it's not a huge grasp on the issue, but somehow it gives you more control. It gives you a better sense of being there and handling things. And also, other than that, we need to know what our risks are, like what can happen with us. It's not like we would always find out or know beforehand, but we can know what to expect. And if we know what to expect, like the example that I gave about you, you're a woman, on which levels would you be attacked?
Okay.
You see? So if you have a certain awareness, we cannot live paranoid, but we need to be aware of what's happening. And the more you expose yourself, the more you have the chance of being, and the more controversial you are.
Okay.
So I like, if I'm going and I'm doing something, I don't know, I'm releasing a song that talks about plants, I have less chance of being attacked than if I'm releasing a song that is talking about, I don't know, homosexuality. Other than, you know, if I'm like contesting political ideologies, we need to know what makes us vulnerable, and also try to set a small plan to be able to deal with that. It does not have to be a very elaborated plan, but like, what would I do? I know that it would hurt me psychologically. How would I behave on that level? Also a mitigation plan if shit really hits the fan, which can happen. Like, what are the next steps for me? If I'm that exposed, of course, I need to think about all of these lines at least a little bit, just to have a clear picture about what can be done on those levels.
Okay, so what are the steps that anyone can take if they are being targeted?
Okay, if they are being targeted, it depends how. So if
it's a big question.
It's a huge question, because you can be, like we talked about cybersecurity and we talked about psychological warfare. But there are so many other ways of being targeted as well. But knowing from, like, we don't always know from where, but how am I being targeted? And it depends on where you're targeted. If I'm being targeted digitally, my first reflex should be to go to someone that I trust that can help me on that level, for example. Someone that is a digital security expert that can help me protect. And also the things that I can do by myself. Like if I'm someone that's very outspoken, that is very exposed to the world, that talk about very like controversial subject, I cannot choose one password on all of my accounts. You know, because I like, people will try to hack me at some point. People will try to ruin my reputation. So I can put in place some mechanisms that can help me protect myself.
Okay.
Like that.
So if someone is being targeted, the resources should be only a psychological, like therapy? Or
no. Okay. So no, of course not. Like, I don't know, if if you have 50 people, it's impossible to have the 50 people in therapy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. Therapy is great, but we can't expect everyone to be following up with a therapist all the time. Whenever we have, of course, like some organizations try to make it accessible, and that's amazing and all, but it's still not accessible to everyone. And sometimes it is a luxury, and that's bad. And sometimes, you know, like you're going through a stressful period and your plan right now is not going through therapy. And we need to accept that as well, because you cannot force people into going to therapy. But how can you respond to our needs? Depending on our needs. Usually we talk about the pyramid of needs. So some people would feel better. Now I'm not talking about digital attacks, of course. I'm talking about well-being. Some people would feel better if they go to yoga once a week and they run once a week, because like they're suffering from normal life stress in life. Some people, they feel great debriefing with their team at work because mainly their issues are related to work. Some people can have, I don't know, something a little bit more specialized. For example, like we can talk, there are many organizations, but also following your need, you can assess your need and then try and find the service that is adequate for that. Not everyone needs a psychiatrist, and not everyone will heal through yoga. You know, so it's really a pyramid while assessing what you really need.
Okay, so when you introduced yourself, you said that you train activists and journalists who are in danger. What is the training basically? Like, I don't explain it, but like, because it's one of the resources for activists. So can you just give us an idea about?
Now it looks like I'm promoting, but it's mainly being aware of the dangers around you, psychologically, physically, and digitally, because you're exposed to the three of them.
Okay.
So first you start with being aware of the danger, and then understanding it, and then knowing the impact on you, and then doing a proactive plan that can protect you. And when we talk about protection and safety, it's never a 100% thing, but you can protect, like you can put some mechanism and some things in play that can protect you. At least it can mitigate the damage.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
No, from my side, I think that's it.
Okay. So, thank you so much for this conversation. And now we will give the opportunity for anyone to ask any question if they want.
I feel like I talked a lot.
لا في الله.
Okay, my question is about like nowadays and how في كتير stress over the idea of cancel culture, and it's like sometimes it's fake news, sometimes it's not, but there's this intense weight to it where there's no going back, for a very long time, at least minimum. So what could one how could one deal with that, or protect themselves from that, or you just can't?
Okay. Before talking about the cancel culture, I need to talk about the disinformation that you just mentioned. We need to be well informed. Most of the things that are out there are propaganda. And sadly, especially in our community, no one fact checks. Like, you have stories and no one bothers to go and check like the historical facts behind it, or if it really happened, or like they just follow the propaganda. So for us, in this, I would say that our main armor would be like good information and being well informed about what's happening, because cancel culture is a huge debate, and it's something different that it would take us hours to debate that, and sometimes it needs to be done. If it's, I don't know, if it's a pedophile, I don't mind it at all, honestly, but I'm not going into that debate. But really being well informed about the facts and not getting like this like taken by the media, because, and we see it, it's a play and it's a game most of the time. So yeah.
wanted to add something, but I also, because someone tried to cancel. I went through it. Someone tried to cancel me once, and if you refuse to be cancelled, you will never get cancelled. And if you just, because I knew that I didn't do anything wrong, and if you just stand for your own and refuse to apologize, because I'm not sorry because I didn't do anything, you won't get cancelled if you fight for yourself. But akida if you didn't do anything wrong. However, I just wanted to say thank you for all of this because I feel exposed 24/7, and
that's tough.
I kept, and like for the past few years, because on social media or like on my phone, I screenshot so many things just for
documentation.
Myself to, later on, when I look at them, I know that I was sane and I was just not paranoid. It actually happened, and this is the screenshot.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, it's a lot of effort for things that we don't usually think of. But I have a lot of archive of things that happen and people who say certain things and situations that, because I feel exposed and people can use this paranoia excuse or card against you whenever they want, that you're against or you take substances or whatever, so you're paranoid, you're not aware, you're not sane. So those screenshots really helped me gain my sanity.
Of course, it documents what happened, and you might choose them. It's like it's a strategy for defense in a world where you're this exposed. Of course.
Yeah. So thank you for this really.
Thank you.
So you said that you work a lot in the Lebanese context, and I wanted to ask, as a solution of how to work forward, if someone gets attacked, whether artist or not an artist, based on political opinions or whatever, where do you think should the solution rely? And I can't remember if I said this, do you think it should be somewhere in sort of data privacy laws that can be developed by our government, quote unquote, or through like tech companies, these social medias, like most of these attacks tend to happen through social media. Where do you think other parties, other than individuals, because I think controlling individuals saying hateful things is super difficult, and of course there are larger entities, where do you think would be the best solution in terms of the Lebanese context?
Okay. First, I don't specifically work in this context on safety, but hopefully I will. But okay, because in this talk we're mixing between the psychological and psychosocial impact and the impact of cybersecurity or cyber attacks. So depending, as I was saying, depending on the need, if you're being digitally attacked, then you need someone very well informed and very well informed technologically on that level that can help you and provide you support. I cannot recommend really organizations in Lebanon that work, but there are. And maybe we can talk later about that. But there are people for that. And if the suffering comes more from a mental health perspective, from psychological attacks and all, people can be working with their psychologist or counselor on a safety plan on that level, because if you're getting attacked, we're not talking about long-term effects. When you're getting attacked, you need to talk about a strategy that will keep you standing on your feet, because this is harmful, what can be happening. So it really depends on the need of the person, where the attack is, what the impact is. Like, it's really something that you measure, that you assess, and then you draft or try to create a strategy for.
Hi, thank you so much. I feel like this is a topic that's not really discussed, especially the kind of like trauma that people face. And I was particularly interested in the kind of like non-Western aspects that you might feel like people would benefit from in terms of protection against the data security, or if you know if there's kind of like long-term studies about the impact of like continuous exposure to a lot of this hatred does to a person. I'm just like really interested.
There are, because it's a new field somehow. I've read many studies about the traumatic impact of being digitally attacked, of hacking on a person, and I'm gonna say it's like a normal trauma, maybe less sensory symptoms, but it is traumatic, it is invasion, it is a turning point in your life that can destroy your whole identity, because most of your identity is online sometimes, depending on what you're doing. So on that level, of course. And there was a second point in your question. You forgot it as well? Yeah. Because I was like 1, 2, and then I forgot the 2. I'm sorry. If you remember it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.